Hello and welcome to Under the Lights, the boxing talk show brought to you by Sportology TV with myself, Ali Drew. And Happy New Year, welcome to the first show of 2021. But on the last show of 2020, we were joined by former world champion Enzo Macronelli, who announced that he will be making a return to the ring later this year. But on this week's episode, we have two great guests joining us. First up, we have the first ever British female boxer to compete at the Olympic Games and who had a very close fight for the world title in the summer. We are delighted to be joined by Natasha Jonas. Tasha, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you on. How are you finding things at the moment? Obviously, we are in lockdown. How's training and how's life in general?
Obviously, we as professional athletes, we can still train. So that hasn't been massively affected, but you've got the extra added pressure of having to homeschool, and the board. I've just seen today that the board have announced that the shows are back on, but obviously there was the worry of when the shows would come back. I'm not signed to anyone, so there was a financial worry that I didn't know when I was going to box. A bit like the first lockdown, to be honest.
Yeah, they've literally announced today. I think it's middle of Feb that shows are coming back. Thank God, because I was thinking it's going to be a month's wait. They were talking about stopping other sports, professional sports as well as boxing. So I was like, well, if anything, we're going backwards. But fingers crossed, everything will be fine. We'll get back mid-February. Is training sort of normal for you? Obviously, you are having to do the homeschooling and stuff. Are you just trying to fit it all in?
Yeah, I'm trying to squeeze it all in and work around it. I'm lucky enough to have a good supportive family I've got a support bubble with my sister. She's recently tested positive, so I've got her kids at the minute. And yeah, she's isolating by herself. It just makes it easier, to be fair. So yeah, they're coming along to sessions with me, which is, it's nice. And I think one of the great things about the Harper training camp was that my little girl was there with me. Obviously, like on some of my social media posts, you can see that, we're skipping together and running down the track, chasing her. And she loved like giving me the water in between rounds and stuff. And it was a nice thing to have, but obviously you just have to adapt and improvise at the time.
Well, as I said in the intro, you did have that world title fight against Terry Harper in the summer. It was a draw. A lot of people, I think, including yourself, thought that you did enough to get the win. How frustrating was that result for you, and what do you think you sort of learned and taken from that?
I mean, I'm not a person who dwells on it. It's not going to change no matter how much I kick and scream or whatever. So, it is what it is. You have to learn from it and move on. It was frustrating because obviously being a WBC champion, the IBO champion, it changes your life, you know what I mean? So it was frustrating. But, it's not to say that it can't happen again. And I think the board could be instrumental here in kind of forcing people's hands, in the sense that, one of the reasons I got the Terry Harper fight was that they closed the borders for and only domestic fights could take place. Now, there's a lot of domestic fights that could happen. So the board could help boxers out. Obviously, a lot of boxers are struggling. We are self-employed athletes, so and there's a lot of competition within Britain itself. So,
Are you hoping for the rematch? Is that what you're after, or have you got your sort of eyes on something else?
Listen, like we couldn't I couldn't agree terms with Matchroom. And it's definitely something I've never, said I don't want it. Of course I want it. I just want it to be on fair terms. But at the same time, I'm not going to sit around waiting forever. Do you know what I mean? I've got, getting to the other side of my career where, I am a little bit older, and I want to be a world champion, and I believe I'm good enough to be a world champion. And so if that opportunity is not there, I will go and chase another one, or put myself in a position where I can't be avoided.
And so what other, as well as, that rematch, if it happens, what other sort of opponents are you targeting now for this year?
Anyone who's got a belt. I actually asked Matchroom to get me the Hamadouche fight last year. A couple of like within a week she was signed, so I thought that was going to be something that we could agree on, but it just wasn't to be. So yeah, anyone with a belt, any weight division, probably from super feather to light welter, that's, you know.
Exciting. So you think that even though there's going to be some restrictions still, I think it's going to be a while till crowds and stuff, but do you feel like you're going to get those opportunities this year?
I would like to think so. There's, like I said, the boards could be instrumental in helping, boxers out here. But regardless of that, I just want to be as active as I can, not only for the financial thing. As I said, I'm coming, towards that end where I haven't got enough time like all these young ones do. So I just want to get as many fights and be as active as I can, and hopefully that'll lead to a world title.
Because as I said in the intro, you were the first British female boxer to compete in the Olympic Games, and I guess since then, women's boxing has just exploded, really, especially in the last year or so. It's just become huge. How pleased are you that it's now, there's women headlining and triple headers going on, how important is that, and how are you pleased that that's happening?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, we have come so far, and boxing at its baseline, there is no, you're just a boxer and you get paid as just a boxer. It's as it goes through the system that, pay differs and stuff. But yeah, we've come a long way. You speak to Jane Couch or read her book, and some of the stories in there are horrific. And if we are like 10, 15, 20 years on and we hadn't seen an improvement, it would be disappointing. So, it's good to see that we have developed, women are headlining shows, women are signed with big promoters, women are on big terrestrial television like Sky, and so that's what we needed. We always knew how good women's boxing was. We just needed the world to see it, and at its elite and at its best, it's proved. I think me and Terry are up for fight of the year and all kinds. So that that's what we needed, and we got it, and we just need to keep that, ride the crest of the wave, as they say, and keep it going. And and hopefully in 10, 15 years when I'm watching it, there isn't such a big thing as women's boxing. It's just the boxing on the telly, and all these young ones coming through will be able to reap the benefits of that.
Yeah, that fight was definitely the highlight of fight camp by an absolute mile for me. That your fight was so good. But obviously it's getting there, women's, but it's not there yet. They need to get more sort of strength and depth in each weight category. As the years go by, that will increase. Do you think that there needs to be any changes? Like, there's been a lot of talk of changing it from 2-minute rounds to 3-minute rounds. What's your thoughts on that?
To be honest, I'm a boxer. I'll just do what I'm told.
We go for 10 minutes.
You change from 3 to 2. When the rounds change in amateur, and when the head guards come off and all, it didn't make a difference. If you don't like it, you don't do it. But as a boxer and as a competing athlete, whatever the rules are, I have to follow them. So I don't really care what the rules are. I train 3-minute rounds with the lads. It's only when we get closer to a fight that I'll knock it down to 2. But what I will say is that if the 2 minutes are just solely to see knockout, then I don't think it's good for our growing sport. I think, if you're saying, we want to test your endurance, we want to test your physicality, we want to see what it's like, test your skill for longer, that's fine. But if it's solely, your reasoning is solely to see a woman be knocked out, then I don't think that's good for our sport, not at this time when it's growing.
Yeah, I do agree that, because obviously I think with the health, people are more aware of health and stuff, and knockouts in general, I think people are worrying. So if they're wanting more knockouts, it's not a solution to anything.
Yeah, they're saying about, they want to make it needs more knockouts to be entertaining, but I didn't knock Terry out and we're fight of the year, so you don't need a knockout, you just need good competing styles that gel.
Yeah. And almost closer fights are the ones that don't have knockouts to do. The most exciting close fights are ones who don't have knockouts.
Exactly. So, it doesn't need that. But I can understand why some fans want it. But I just don't think for a growing sport and the place where we are, we're in a good position. and we need to keep that going. And I just don't think if it's just solely to see that it should happen.
Well, you did say that,
and on the flip side to that, sorry, if we do the 12 frees, no one's talking about whether our pay is going to be increased and whether it's going to be on the same kind of thing as men's, and so everyone wants to talk about do 3 minutes, do this, okay, but is the pay going to change? Because what's the point if it doesn't?
Exactly. Yeah, if you're going to have level time, then you need level pay. It's got to work both ways.
Exactly.
You did say that you already train 3-minute rounds with the guys in the gym. Obviously, you are the only female in the gym, are you? That's training.
Sometimes
Crawler trains a few.
Rihanna Davis, Rihanna Dixon, sorry, she comes in,
because she trains with Crawler. But obviously, as predominantly is guys in there, what is it like training in that environment?
Do you know what? It's I've always done it. Like from the Rotunda, I was probably one of at most 2 females there at any time. And then on GB, there was I think 7 girls to the lads, 27 lads. So it was just that we're in a male, predominantly male sport. So it's not something that I'm uncomfortable with. There's not a situation them lads have been through that I can't go into and ask for advice, information, whatever. So it is good, and I've known them all for a long time, especially the likes of the Smiths. I've come up through the Rotunda, and so I'm not out of place. It's not one of them when you're maybe a younger girl going on to a footy team and you're the last one to be picked and you have to prove yourself. It's not like that anymore. I've kind of done all that in the amateur career, and when I went there it was like, okay, like I'm recognised, I'm just one of them, and I think that's massive.
Well, you mentioned the Smith brothers there. Obviously Callum Smith had his fight just before Christmas against Canelo. He obviously didn't get the result he wanted, but do you think that he put in a good performance, and obviously it was a massive opportunity for him?
Yeah, I think, sorry, it was a great performance. He didn't do much wrong. Personally, I didn't give Canelo enough credit for how, his boxing IQ, how smart he was. And Callum just did what he could, and it just wasn't enough on that day. But he's never turned down a fight. He's always stepped up when we've asked, and we come to expect so much of certain boxers that like you just can't have an off performance, or if they don't perform as well one time, everyone jumps on the back, and it's just that's just the boxing fans and the boxing for you in general.
Do you think there's anyone in the world at the moment who can beat Canelo, or do you think he's just sort of up there on his own?
I think there's a lot of styles that potentially could give him problems. I'd love to see a Canelo Billy Joe. There's talks of Andrade, Caleb Plant, and I think the same with me and Harper. When them opportunities come, if you're not willing to step up and take them opportunities, you're in the wrong game. Or what's the point? If you're not in there to be the best and fight the best, what's the point? If you want to avoid all types of people and say that I'm the champion, but you haven't actually fought the best, you're in the wrong game.
And that's why I suppose credit to Callum Smith. He took the fight on, I think, 4 weeks' notice, and everything was sort of against him. They're having to fly over there, isolate. It was all against him, and he took that opportunity because he wanted to fight the best.
Yeah, they don't come around all the time in life, and especially in boxing. When no opportunities are there, you've just got to grab them. And like I said before with Terry, when the board closed their borders last year to international fighters coming in, the opportunity was there for me to fight Terry. And if I wasn't prepared to step up, what is the point? So that's exactly what it did. And you're fighting for a world title. You're gonna step up. He's fighting the best in the world. He's gonna step up, and he's gonna put everything into the camp for the time that he had to perform at his best. And unfortunately, it just wasn't the result either of us wanted.
Yeah, because I think we had Joe on the show So I think just after the Callum Smith fight announcement, and he said that he likes to keep you all in the gym constantly, just staying fit so that you are ready. It's just a mentality, I think, for the gym, that your environment is to just always be ready. And I think that's always been Joe's way, but I think recently, due to the cancellations of everything in COVID, that's also the mentality that other people are now taking on board. Because I think a lot of people traditionally in boxing would fluctuate in weight, they'd only be in the gym if they were in camp, but now, as you say, people just need to be ready, they need to step up.
Yeah, because people testing positive left, right and centre, and the fight's still going to go ahead. So you're at the promoter's beck and call, and especially even more so if you're like a small hall fighter who's you're not going to be paid because you're paid off your ticket sales. So if you're ready to go at any given point, if I personally will be training as if I'm going to any of them shows, because at any time someone can fail a test and they'll need an opponent, and you'll be ready.
Before we finish, I just want to ask what fight that you want to see in 2020 the most. What fight are you sort of hoping happens, looking forward to?
Apart from myself?
Yes.
I think Joshua Fury is probably the biggest. I think Savannah Clarissa, I think that's another huge one. If I can't get the Harper, I think Harper Mayer is a good one. Ben and Josh Kelly. Fowler, Cheeseman, Richard, Johnson, Bawatsi, Smith, Brook. There's loads, and exactly what I'm saying to you. These are all British versus British, and they can be made possible. That can happen this year. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, we don't mind the borders being closed. Just let us just
let us box ourselves. We'll have just a competition. Let us all box between ourselves.
Every year, just a British boxing. That's it. Tasha, thank you so much for your time. It's been great talking to you, and good luck with 2021. And hopefully, you'll get some big fights.
No, brilliant. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Great to be joined there by Natasha Jonas, and we hope that she has a big 2021 ahead. But stay tuned, we have part 2 of the show coming up, where we are joined by former British champion Brian Rose, and we have a guest co-host joining us. Welcome to part 2 of this episode of Under the Lights for Sportology TV with me, Ali Drew, and joining me as a guest co-host today is trainer Rob Rimmer from Phoenix Camp. Rob, how are you?
I'm good, Ella. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Good.
Thanks for joining us. And our guest that is joining us now is former British champion and former world title contender. It is Brian the Lion Rose. Brian, how are you?
I'm really good. I'm good. I'm glad to be back training. Feeling good again.
How are you? Obviously, it's lockdown, but your professional athletes can still train. But you're also a gym owner, so how are you finding it all?
It's been a struggle, if I'm honest, because I used the gym as a bit of a release. Even when I wasn't training, I'd come and do PTs with people, and we've got amateurs as well, so we're an affiliated amateur gym. So it was a release for me. Whereas obviously being stuck at home, but we're all in the same boat, so there's no point in moaning about it. Like I say, there's people worse off than me. There's some people that don't have children. There's some people that are stuck at home on their own. So, like I say, I'm luckier than most people.
So you two actually know each other quite well, because Brian, you're trained by Rob's dad, Bobby Rimmer, and I think Rob, you've also trained for him for some of his fights as well.
Yeah, I've been lucky enough to watch them to also train him. Which fight was it, Brian? Now the one at Victoria Warehouse. It was against
Alistair
Warren. Alistair Warren, yeah. So
you
I
for that one, didn't you?
Say that again.
You cornered me for that one, didn't you? You actually was in the corner.
Yeah,
your dad handed up, didn't he?
Yeah. Which was weird. Which is really weird. But yeah. So for that one, but it wasn't quite the same. Was it? Well, it went well, but it wasn't quite the same. And
I'm finding this really difficult, keeping a straight face while you're. That's how well I know you. I can't do this without laughing.
How long have you known each other for?
Oh, about 15 years. He's like my brother.
Yeah.
I'd like to say he's like my younger brother, but I'm like his younger brother.
I've got full control over him, you see. He listens to me.
It's because I've lived at his house, and I used to make him make my dinner and that.
Listen, that's fine, isn't it? But you was the brew maker. Hey, you've been brew maker for all these years, remember? Hey, I know all your secrets, even when you was meant to be dieting.
You used to say, make sure you stir it to the right.
Oh, it's gone off.
Why is he gone? Like, he's going to have to join in again. I reckon someone phoned him. He doesn't like the conversation about the tea making, obviously. We'll get him back on now. So yeah, so you were in his corner, and your dad was like the second.
So my dad was the second. So basically, for years and years, my dad trained him from being a professional, and then at a stage in his career, I can't remember what happened, but then I trained him for the camp, and then I was the head trainer. My dad done the corner and was handing up. It was weird.
I bet your dad found that weird.
So I've been all the way to the top with him. I've ended up to him.
I don't know what happened there, sorry.
You didn't like the chat of the tea making.
No, I turned it off. You know what?
Yeah, I bet you did.
My brother just rang because I'm doing it off my phone. People ring, it does my head in.
You need to put isn't it? What did you do? Airplane mode. I don't really know technology, but I'm sure if you do airplane mode, it cuts it out. It stops it.
Yeah, it
will. Wi-Fi, Brian.
Yeah, but my internet's shit at the gym. It's crap.
Oh,
otherwise, I've got to go through 4G.
Do you know what, mate?
I've told people not to ring this stuff.
One thing about you, you've never changed. You're tight as a fish's ass.
Mate, it's nothing to... Mate, I can't pay more to have good internet. It's the where I am, you dickhead. What are you talking about? 5G,
mate, you're like that. You've never changed. Hey, you won't give a door a bang.
No, that 5G is bad for you, apparently.
That is what they say. That's what they say. The conspiracy that it started the coronavirus, isn't it?
Yeah. Right,
can't be any worse than getting punched in the face, can it?
So you were saying, Rob, that obviously your dad was like the second to you when you were in Brian's corner. That must have been weird for him.
Yeah. So basically, throughout Brian's career, Brian come to Manchester and was obviously started training with my dad. Obviously, that's where his career started. I was just fortunate enough to kind of get involved in the early stages, and then I've always been involved in boxing, but more involved in Brian's career. I was my dad's second, and I used to get involved, handing up and stuff like that. So that's kind of where I built an experience, and I've been fortunate enough from the early stage of Brian's career. I've been all the way through from English, British, all the way up to the pinnacle of the sport, a world title fight. But then briefly, through towards the end, before you had a couple of fights. I trained Brian for one of his fights, and then weirdly, my dad was handing up. So it was a strange setup, because obviously it was always the other way around. So it was me giving the instructions in the corner, and my dad handing the gum shield and cleaning that out, which was just, it wasn't quite the same. So
Brian, obviously you spend a lot of time with Bobby. You did a day in, day out at the gym. Who do you think he prefers, you or Rob? He doesn't want to answer.
You know what? I'd like to say his own children, but they'll say otherwise. No, you know what? He treats me like one of his kids. He really does, and you know what?
No,
I treat him like my
you're
dad.
the golden child. You can't do that wrong.
Yeah, but going back to that, like, Robert was a bigger help than he'll ever know. Like, he was the one that, like, kept me calm. He was the one that he'd always stay in the room with me, and because he was like more my age, we got on, and he used to take the piss out of me all the time, and I used to try and take the piss out of him back, and it took my mind off the fight, and it really helped, rather than everything be so serious all the time. So having him in my corner was a massive help, and it still is, because eventually I'll be coming back to Phoenix camp. All I need to do is get a little bit fitter, because he works the lads hard, and I can't come while I'm overweight and unfit.
Hey, tell you what, right? Hey, if people knew what we used to do before probably the biggest fights of your life, 24 hours before he's got the biggest fight of his life, I'll be bouncing on the bed with his head guard and his bollock protector went out.
Mate, honestly.
Hey,
you used to put videos on, and people used to like after the fight, people used to go, mate, I was worried about you. You know, like I can't believe what you was doing before the fight. I was like, that's the way we do things. I don't know, it's weird. Because next thing I'm getting my head smashed in, and like a few hours before it, we're fucking about. It's mad.
Yeah.
Well, Brian, you have just signed to a new promotion team, the management team. So talk to us about that. It's obviously Kieran Farrell. What do you sort of what's made that change happen?
You know what? Kieran used to train with Bobby for years, and I'd like to think that he's learned a lot from me. You know, being a pro at the time, I think he used to look up to me, and he's just a lad making noise at the moment, and I think he's going to do really well. And I just, at the same time, wanted to give him an opportunity, but also he's someone that I can ring every day. Peck his head, and not feel like I'm mithering him. MTK Global did a great job with me getting the big fights, and I just think times have changed with this coronavirus, getting on shows. So I just think now's the right time to sign with someone like Kieran, because even since I signed with him, he's pushing for me all the time, and I think me being with him will help him sign other accomplished fighters, because he's signing prospects. He's got loads of amateurs coming through, but he hasn't got anyone that's accomplished. So I feel like giving him the opportunity is the right thing to do. And also, I think being able to ring someone and bouncing off ideas off each other is a good thing too. So it's refreshing, and I feel like I've got a spring in my step now since I've signed.
How frustrating? Obviously, it was the same for a lot of people. You know, last year was not great for boxing. Some people got some fights in, but how frustrating was it? You know, waiting and boxing being off, and then not getting the fights. How sort of frustrating was that for you when you just want to push on with your career?
If I'm totally honest, it didn't affect me because I was in no fit state to fight anyway. Like I got beat by Fowler. I felt I'd come on strong in that fight late on, so I didn't get the answers that I wanted from that fight. I always went into that fight thinking, if I get beat here, you know, I'll call it a day. But as the fight went on, I was thinking I'm coming into my own here a little bit, and it was my first competitive fight I'd had in like 18 months. So I still feel like I've not had the answers that I want. So I had a year out, so it didn't affect me. But I do feel sorry for these young lads coming through, like the lads at Phoenix camp. You know, none of them can get out and fight. It's terrible because they've got to earn money. So eventually, these lads are going to have to go and get jobs because they're not earning any money. But to be honest, I had my gym. Obviously, I get the grants for the gym and stuff. So I've done all right. You know, I'm one of the luckier ones.
You mentioned there the Anthony Fowler fight. Rob, what did you sort of make of that fight for Brian, and how you can sort of come back from it? As you say, you didn't get the answers that you wanted.
Going into that fight, you know, obviously Brian's a big name, he's a big draw, especially in British boxing. So you've got fighters like Anthony Fowler and, you know, tough domestic fighters who are coming through. And I think a lot of people going into that fight domestically, it was a good clash. But I think a lot of people also was kind of writing Brian off. He's finished. He's going to get stopped. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. But you know, he went into it and he's shown a lot about himself. You know, his experience. You know, his condition was absolutely fantastic. The training camp between him and my dad must have gone, you know, absolutely perfect because, like I said, his condition and his fitness. But during that fight, I think Brian will agree with me, where, you know, he started just a little bit slow. But again, he progressed into the fight, and he not only did he take some big shots, but he also landed some big shots of his own. And I feel like, you know, if he may have stepped on the gas a little bit sooner and did what he was doing on the later rounds, the fight could have gone either way because, you know, he took Fowler into deep waters, and I'm sure he'll say the same. So for Brian, you know, there is a lot of unanswered questions because, you know, it's at a level domestically still. You know, it's at a high level, and he's still in there. He's competing with the best. So, I mean, he's the only person that can tell you, unless he got took out flat on his back. I think that's the only time he's going to hang up his gloves. But, you know, for now, I think, you know, he can mix it with the best.
Yeah, I do. So I do believe Andy Fowler is he's one of the hungriest fighters out there. He's young, he's hungry. There's not many people like him, so I got unlucky. I was supposed to fight Scott Fitzgerald, and I was ready to fight him. So I fought Andy Fowler for 3 weeks' notice. Yeah, I was fit, but I wasn't prepared to fight someone like Fowler. So it was a little bit unfair. If I'd have fought Scott Fitzgerald, it might have been a totally different fight. So looking back, I didn't get a fair share of the draw. And I know that the Marcus Morrisons and people like him, I know I can beat people like him comfortably.
Yeah, so what do you feel like is what you're wanting next? Are you wanting the Scott Fitzgerald fight? Because obviously that didn't happen, as you say. What's the sort of story with that?
I don't actually know. I think he's had, personal issues, which I totally understand. But what he does need to understand is he's took me away from my family twice to go to camp. And that, for me, at this age, it cost me money. So every time I train, every session I do now, for me, it's a day's work. That's how I see it. So he pulled out. He pulled out the first time with 3 weeks to go when I'd been in camp for like 10 weeks. And the second time he agreed again. So I went off to camp again. A couple of weeks later, he pulled out. So for me, I know I got beat by Fowler, and people say, well, you got beat by Fowler and he beat him, but style makes fights, and I honestly believe I've got the know-how and the experience to beat Scott Fitzgerald. I really do. If he comes 100% fit, then I've got a right fight in my hands. If he comes 78% fit, then I swear I'll stop him. I know I will. I just want that fight. Whether it can happen next, I don't know, because we need the crowds back. It's Blackpool Preston. It's a huge fight, so we have to have fans there. But even Marcus Morrison, I'm aiming for Marcus Morrison, end of April, early May, maybe in Blackpool. We spoke about it. If that fight can happen, great. But if anything comes up in the meantime, see, if in 6 weeks' time, I'm going to start feeling great again. I'm going to start feeling fit. So I'll take it. I'll take a fight at 6 weeks' notice on Matchroom or Box Nation, which I know. I mean, Champ Cummins the other day, he's put something on. There's always someone calling me out because, like Robert said, I'm a big scalp on people's names, and people want to do a better job than the last person. So I'm always going to get big fights, which is great for me as long as I'm prepared.
Rob, who would you like to see Brian face?
I think Marcus Morrison at this stage is a very good fight going forward. I think stylistically, I think it suits Brian down to a T. Marcus is young, hungry. Got a few good opponents on his record, and I just think going forward again at this stage, I think Marcus is a good opponent, and if Brian comes through Marcus in the way he believes, then I think you take anybody, domestically, British or European, and I just think that'll set him up nicely.
Brian, what are your goals, obviously, for the rest of your career now? What are you wanting?
The thing is, I'm not going to sit here. I'm a realist, so I fought for a world title, and I know my better days are behind me. But what I have got now, so I'm a little bit slower than I was probably 5 years ago, but what I have got now is experience, and I know I've got more experience than anyone that I'm going to get in the ring with. So domestically, I still think I've got it. I still think I can win a British title, and like Robert said, maybe a European title, but I know my chances of fighting for a world title are over. But, why not go out and win a British title again? And I've never won a European title, maybe fight for a European. So I do know my limits. And I'm a realist. I'm not going to sit here and start saying, I'm a world beater, because I'm not anymore. I get that. But there is still fight in me. There's still fire in my belly, which I can't retire feeling like that, because I'll have regrets for the rest of my life.
And I suppose, even though you're saying, you're not as fast as you were, if you go back in the gym in Phoenix camp, I'm sure he'll get you quite fit. I saw some footage from this morning.
Yeah, the lads work really hard, and it'll be good for me, because at the moment I am in the gym on my own, which for obvious reasons because of this COVID. So I'm in the gym on my own with Bobby, which is great, because we do back me. I love Bobby, honestly. He's like my second dad, honestly. I love him to pieces. And we bounce off each other. He still takes the piss out of me. I take the piss out of him, and it's good to have. But it'll be good to get a change and see all the lads, because I love all the lads as well at Phoenix camp.
Are you ready to welcome him back in once you're allowed?
Yeah, make sure. Yeah, as long as he's fit, there's a bunch of young lads there waiting to just give him a little licking. You know what I mean, Bri?
Listen, I'll jab that Jack Massey's head off again.
Mate, you can't start it in his nose. He gets all touchy about it now.
Listen,
his nose is like a dog toy.
I've swore I'm never going to spar with him again because he owes me one, doesn't he? So I said I'm never getting in the ring with him again because last time I sparred with him, I think I broke his nose. First time I ever had his nose broken. So after that, I just said after that, I said I'm never sparring with him again because he started loading up last time I sparred with him.
Hey, imagine catching one of them.
Oh, mate, I can't be arsed getting it off him.
No, but it's good though as well, Ali, because like you say, Brian brings bags of experience. So I've got a lot of young lads in that gym who either just turned pro or they're in the early days as a professional. So it's nice to have Brian in the gym because it's not what I say or anybody else, but it's always nice to hear it from someone that's been there, done it, and got the t-shirt, as a fighter. So that's a massive thing as well, having that around the gym. I
tried to give my words of wisdom on the Phoenix Camp group, but they all take the piss out of me.
Oh, we have a WhatsApp group on the Phoenix Camp, and it's just nothing serious. You daren't say anything, and as soon as you do, you just get it, don't you?
Yeah, I try and give them advice, and they're all like, "Shut up, you dickhead."
Not appreciating the words of wisdom at all.
No, but you know what?
No, not at all.
Another thing, and also going back to words of wisdom, Brian, like I say, like we had a conversation the other day, and obviously the circumstances have changed now. So with all this COVID and everything that's happening, you're seeing a lot of fighters now getting opportunities that in normal circumstances you would never ever be given the platform or the chance to fight on these big shows and big occasions. And now fighters are getting the chance, but it's the ones that are ready and the ones that are staying ready. And you know what? It's as a professional fighter, it's their duty, to maintain and to stay in shape and to stay thereabouts within the weight. Because you can see a lot of fighters who balloon up, and you can vouch, Brad. You've done it many times where early on in his career, you're quick to fight, be in a camp, and then you'll balloon up. You'll go out eating shite and drinking and whatever else. Before you know it, you're 2 stone overweight. Every time that you get back into camp, it's twice as hard. So that trauma in your body becomes even greater, and you do that time and time again. Your body becomes weak. But what advice would you give to a lot of young fighters coming through now, Bri, in these circumstances?
Well, I think me being at Phoenix Camp and training with your dad, I think we all followed in the footsteps of Rick Yatton. But Rick Yatton, let's have it right, was the only man that could get away with what he'd done, get away with it and go and win world titles. I think a lot of these fighters tried to copy him, and we just can't do it. Rick Yatton was a different, special fighter, and we're not like that. And I've learned over the years, times have changed, so I have to keep myself fit now because I'm not going to get the 12 weeks anymore. I'm not going to get 12 weeks. I used to get 12 weeks because of who I was and what I was achieving. Now no one gives a shit. So I'm gonna get 6 weeks notice at the most. So I need to get myself fit in 6 weeks and then take an opportunity. So I understand that now, but I just wish I'd done that 10 years ago. So any young fighter out there, just keep yourself fit, even if you're just ticking over in the meantime. But I believe you do that with the lads, though, don't you, Rob? You make sure they're back in, you give them a week off, and then they're back in. If they're not, you give them shit, don't you?
Yeah, 100%. Like this morning, I was in the gym. I had them all together. And before they started training, I sat them all down and I had a good chat with them for 20 minutes. And you know what? You've got to understand, like, I always say to them, it's not about me. It's about them. This is their careers. It's a short-lived career. And like I said, I've been fortunate enough to be through Brian's career. So, all the rights and wrongs and the do's and don'ts, I've kind of, picked up on all that. I've watched what my dad's done over many years, and I've tried to implement stuff into what I do now. But like I said to him this morning, times have changed, and you don't want to be sat around and watching everybody else getting opportunities, because you don't know when that phone's going to ring. And I've got a group of fighters which are talented fighters, unbeaten fighters, and once that phone rings, you get given that platform. It takes that one fight. That's it. You're on your way. So I say to this morning, I've weighed them all. I told them now, I want them in the gym half an hour before. If you're there within the last 5 minutes or you're late, turn around, get back in your car and go home. Because it's a discipline. You as a fighter is a discipline, and it goes hand in hand, and it carries you all the way through. And again, it's not for me, it's for their own benefit. So I had a chat with them all this morning, and we put a few rules in place, and they get weighed twice a week. And it's not about what you just do in the gym; it's about what you do out the gym. And you'll see a lot of fighters who cut corners, but trust me, you get found out sooner or later. Even the most talented fighters, you get found out sooner or later. So if I can try and drill it into them, the fundamentals and the morals of the sport, from watching Brian and stuff like. I mean, remember Brian when you be in camp, and you might be in week 1, and you're working on weight. You might be losing £2 a week. He'd sneak into the cupboard and grab a little flapjack or a couple of biscuits. And it sounds nothing. It sounds absolutely nothing. But you do it once, you might do it on a Tuesday evening, and you might have just a little sneaky cheat. And that's week 1. And then you do it week 2, or you do it towards the end of week 2, but then you're always playing catch up. Yeah. So if you stuck to the plan, the weight comes off nice and easy. But before you know it, if you're doing it in week 1 and you had it all the way up from, say, a 12-week camp, then you've probably got a week, 10 days lost of eating shit out of that full camp. So all the hard work then starts towards the end of camp. You're rushing to get it off, and then you're putting your body under unnecessary stress. So I think a lot of people do it.
I've had a perfect camp where I've done everything correct. But your dad's head would fall off if you knew some of the things I've done. Like, I remember getting pizza like a week before the first Tasha Jonas fight, and then wondering why I couldn't make weight and all that, and just some of the mistakes I've made are outrageous and all my fault. Do you know what I mean? I'm trying to blame other people. Oh, don't know why I'm heavy. Do you know what I mean? That's what you always get off boxers. They always stand on the scales and like, I don't know why I'm heavy. I shouldn't be heavy. Were you heavy because you've ate too much? You've had a pizza or you've cheated. There's no excuse. If you're heavy on the scales, you've done something wrong.
Yeah, there's very few. There's worse lies in the world. Listen, the lie to the self. Look in the mirror, the lie to the self. But what I'm saying is, so for the younger fighters, like, it's all about creating good habits, not bad habits. Now, you could be the most talented fighter in the world, and you're starting early on in your career. You start to develop them bad habits like eating shit or cutting corners, but your talent's going to get you through. And you in your mind, you think, well, it's a breeze in the park, because the levels in which you fight are totally different. But it catches up. It catches up with you. So, but again, if you start to create them bad habits early on, or if you wipe them out early on, and you start as you mean to go on, then it's going to carry you right the way through. But if you, like I said, if you've got them bad habits and you wait until you're 9-10 fights in and things are starting to get a little bit serious and you're trying to implement them then it becomes even harder. But it's got to be a way of life.
You know what? Every run you miss, and like every time you cheated, when it hits you when you walk into the ring, I swear, when you walk into the ring, you're thinking, shit, I missed that run. Oh my God, I had that. Like, but if you've done it perfect, you have no doubt in your mind that you're going to win that fight. And that's what it is. You get it when you're in the change rooms or when you walk into the ring, you think, fuck, I've cheated.
100%. And that's what I mean.
Is Bobby as strict as Rob is with telling you what to eat? And
if I'm totally honest, he's quite lenient with me. He is, and only the last couple of years, like we're talking about being late. I'm probably the only person that's allowed to be late because I'm a nightmare with timing. But Bobby is like that. Like, he'll literally chuck someone out of the gym for being late. So yeah, Bobby's my boss again now, and he's telling me what to do again, which is what I need. He's picking me up for runs. If I say I don't want to go, he's telling me that I've got to go, which is what I need. So yeah, he is quite strict.
Listen, you got to remember. Listen, so I worked with him for years and years in the gym, but like we're totally different. Have a different approach. Where my dad is very old school, so like it was never for me to say or even to comment, even though he's my dad. Sometimes the way he used to speak and do things, it's weird really, because again, one thing you can't buy in any sport in life is experience. Sometimes you've got to go through things to learn to better yourself. But I used to watch him years ago, and like I said, the lads would turn up to the gym, some of them, barring Brian. Brian always had like, he's the golden child, that's why I always say, because he was the one, he could come an hour late and he'd be like, oh, Brian, this. But the rest of the lads, if they come 5 minutes late, he was harsh. He was not listening. I remember when Kieran come 2 minutes late, and he was get that fuck out of my gym, and that was it. He was like, no, you're gone. He took absolutely zero shit.
Did he say get the fuck out of my gym, you specky twat?
Something along them lines. Yeah. Like he was just cutthroat. Where for me, it used to make me go like, oh, like you don't know where to put your face.
Oh mate, honestly, some of the things he's done, I just like, cringing. I've got my back to the door and I'm thinking, please don't chuck him out.
Honestly, even like when you've been at shows or you're speaking to certain people, or I used to think to myself, you can't speak to people, like you can't be that way. But now, all these years on, I'm starting to see and understand why he was the way he was. And now, looking back, I used to think, you know what? He was bang on. He was right. Even though, like, I would maybe not go around, I probably got a little bit more patience in him. But I understand now why he did what he did. And I think, well, you probably never get to the level and where he did with Brian if he wasn't that way. So
I know for a fact, going back, if I hadn't trained with your dad, I would never have achieved what I've achieved because of the way he was with me. It literally he still now does everything for me, like making sure I've got shopping in the apartment I'm staying at the moment. He's like, honestly, Papa looks after me still, and I'm 35 years old.
He doesn't do that for Rob. You are golden child.
Rob,
hey, I've never even had a bottle of milk
when I'm back in Manchester.
I've never even had a bottle of milk. Hey, telling you.
Guys, thank you so much for doing this. Brian, it's great chatting to you, and good luck for your fights that you have coming up in 2021. Fingers crossed there'll be a few.
Thank you.
Great to be joined there by Brian Rose, and we hope that he has a lot of fights lined up in 2021. But Rob, thank you for joining us. First co-hosting duties. It's great to have you on. But make sure you stay tuned, guys. We have lots more coming up. Please subscribe to the channel, leave some comments, like the videos, share, do what you can, and we will see you next time.